So I've been doing some accountability calls with a friend, and he showed me a really interesting website, and we did a really interesting exercise. We did a really interesting exercise together that I wanted to share with you. So I was thinking about how when we're creating, it's sometimes very difficult to stay motivated. And there's a lot of different factors for why that is. But one of the reasons I was thinking is that sometimes creating is not fully meeting our needs when we're creating. You know, with everything we do, there's parts of the process we like, there's parts of the process we don't enjoy. And so it's figuring out, when you create, what are your needs involved in that process, and how can we go about meeting them more efficiently? And that's what this exercise really pinpoints. And it's a great website that I'll walk you through this exercise. So I want to share again a question that someone posed to me a few weeks ago, which is, if you knew a goal was going to take 5 years, let's say it was going to take 5 years to write this book, and you knew that you were going to die in 2.5 years, and you knew that the book was only going to be half written, would you still do it? And would you still look back and say that you enjoyed your life? I think that's a great question to think about. Do you actually enjoy the goal that you're pursuing? Do you actually enjoy creating in that process? Or is it just the result you're looking for? You knew the book wouldn't make any money and it wasn't going to be renowned and it was only going to be halfway done. Does that still satisfy you? Because you're not in it for the renown and the sales. Because are you in it because you just love to write? And I think that a lot of times when people are very end result focused, they don't achieve as good of results as the people who just love the process. They're just in it for the love of the game. Like when I think about dancing, for example, that's something that I would be really happy, like if I wanted, let's say I had some goal of entering some dance competition, which I don't, but let's say I had some goal like that and it took me 2.5 years and I was training. I can tell you I would still love that process because I just love dancing so much. And I'd say, oh yeah, I would definitely spend the next 2.5 years still dancing because I love it so much. So there's a website with an exercise that I'm going to link in the description so that you can do this exercise. But it lays out a series of cards. So there's, I believe, 5 decks of cards, 5 or 6. You start off, you just pick one deck and it has values. And you pick 2 or 3 that are more important to you, and you're framing it you're answering the question, what do I need? And you can think about, like, I was answering these in the questions of doing a YouTube channel. Like, what gets me most excited? Which of these words gets me the most excited when I think about applying them to YouTube? Which of these words do I need most in the realm of my career? So whether it's a creative project you're working on or your career, you're answering which of these gets me most excited and do I need the most? So you pick a couple and then you get a new deck. And you pick a couple and you go through that and you go through each of the decks and you've picked 2 to 3 cards for each of those decks. Now, I did this as a physical version. I didn't do the digital version, so there might be some discrepancies here. And then you take all of those top choices and you narrow it down to 5. Now, I've done these types of exercises a lot before where you kind of determine what your values are and then you don't really do anything with them. It's like, okay, so we've determined I love these 5 things and I need these 5 things, great, but what do we actually do with that? And so I thought that the next question and the next exercise was actually more important. So you go through and you rate on a scale of 1 to 100. I think we did 1 to 100 to give a little bit more specificity with the numbers. How much are each of those values currently, those needs, how much are they currently being met in your current job? And so you can look and see, like, okay, well, in regards to my painting, my need for creativity, maybe in the way I'm doing it, it's actually only 12 out of 100. You know, if creativity is one of your values, you might think, oh yeah, I'm doing art. Okay, obviously creativity is being met. But maybe in this time of your life, you're actually just doing it kind of rotely and you're just copying different things. So maybe it actually doesn't feel for you that it's creative, or maybe it does. So it's very subjective. And so if you're having a hard time staying motivated with whatever your goal is, and you realize that it's getting very low scores in meeting your needs, then that is a sure sign that something is off. And after you've rated it on a scale of 1 to 100 for those values, you also write down a little blurb of why. What's the reason that it's not meeting the need of creativity right now? So the next journaling question is then, if these were ranking 100 out of 100, let's say creativity is a value for you, what would a job or a project, what would it look like if the need of creativity was being met 100 out of 100? What would that look like? And so you journal what those qualities would be. So now you've got 2 descriptions for the value of creativity. One, you've got why this project is maybe not meeting your needs and what the reasons are. 2, you have a column of, if something was 100 out of 100 in this category, this is what it would look like. And now if you're wanting to keep this project and you think that it actually does overall meet your needs, how can I change the process to allow for these to look more one and the same? Now, I did this exercise and I wanted to share some of my scores with you, and to be like completely transparent, like YouTube has completely changed for me over the last few years. So one of my top values is taking risks. And when I think about when I first started the YouTube channel, it was taking a risk because I was a teacher. I didn't know if anything was going to pan out. I was talking about all sorts of different topics. So every video kind of felt like a risk. Like, I don't know how this is going to land. I ended up quitting my job, so that felt like a big risk. So at one point, YouTube was meeting a lot of needs for risk for me. But when I think back to the last 2 years, it's like, basically I had a video do well 2 years ago, and it's like I kind of just went on autopilot in that direction. Like, that's what works, so I need to just continue doing a lot of that. And I think there's an argument, I don't think it's a completely illogical train of thought, but I think as time has gone on, it's stopped meeting a need of taking risks because it's felt very repetitive. And as I continue to not meet my need of taking risks, I continue to just be damped down more and more. So I rated that 23 out of 100. I won't share what I wrote for all of them, but basically my needs are taking risks, solving problems, creativity, feeling empowered, and advancement. And when I look at YouTube, most of them reiterate the same thing, which is that at one point these things were being met. At this point in time, these needs are not being met. And so if you continually are doing a process in a way that's not meeting your needs, it would make sense that you're not going to stay motivated. The other one that I'll note is advancement. And to me, when I think of advancement, it could be, you know, like you're in a corporation and you're working your way up a ladder, which that's something that I think I would enjoy. But in the way I'm thinking about it right now, I'm thinking about how I just love growth. I want to feel like I'm advancing, that I'm learning new things, problem solving, like I said, and I just want to be able to see tangible growth. And I think for a long time, YouTube's been kind of stalled out, and it feels like, I think because I'm not really operating in things that I value, there's been kind of this stagnation and not advancement, and it makes me just kind of like lethargic. Like, I just need growth. I thrive on growth. I love to see change and learning new things and building new skills and taking risks and then seeing that pay off, and then you do it again and you do it again. But I've reached kind of a ceiling, I suppose, with advancement. And so what I'm thinking about right now is, what do I want to change? So I think it's eye-opening to think about what would it look like if these needs were being met, and outlining then what the process would look like my YouTube process. If creativity was at 100 out of 100, now not every moment of every day is going to be great. There's parts of the process with anything that you do that's not going to be the best. But just thinking about, if creativity were at 100 out of 100, what would my week look like? And then outlining, okay, if problem solving were at 100 out of 100, what would that look like? And outlining those things. And the other application, I think, of knowing what your values are is, I talked about it months ago. I heard it from another YouTuber, but it's this idea of when you communicate through your value prism, which is, once you know your values, every time you communicate, like if you're a painter or if you're a writer or whatever you're doing, communicate through that lens. So then if I have a value for risk taking, then as I'm planning videos, I want to think about, like, okay, I've got a value for risk taking. Okay, I should be a role model for risk taking. How can I encourage people to take risks? And when I think about, in the first versions of the planner, there's the comfort zone model, which is, think back on the last year of all the things that you made happen, the amazing things, the great things that you made happen, which were outside of your comfort zone and which were within your comfort zone. And usually the things that we say, like the highlight reel of our life, those are all on the other side of our comfort zone, which is me advocating for people to take more risks, which is advice I need to follow. I need to integrate that in my life. If I profess to have these values, it needs to be in my life more readily. So it's something I think about. We don't have to will ourselves to do things that we enjoy. And if we're doing something creative that we think is meaningful, it's a sticky goal, it's difficult. You know, there's hurdles maybe of insecurity. There's times we don't feel like doing it. You know, things do kind of, you know, wax and wane, I suppose. But in general, if we really love the thing, more often than not, we're not having to will ourselves to do it because we're just enjoying it. I don't have to convince myself and use discipline to listen to great music. I love to listen to great music, and so it's easy to do it. So the more we don't like something and we're just doing it for the result, the more we're gonna have to will ourselves to do it. And so this is why making sure that we actually love the thing in and of itself, even if it never got a good result, that we love the process, that it's meeting our needs, those are the ways that we stay motivated, especially with big creative projects with sticky goals. I think there's a potential that some people might be thinking, well, I'm doing this thing because it's meaningful and it's selfless, and so it's okay that I don't enjoy it because I'm giving of myself to a cause for something else. But I would say that out of all the causes that you can give yourself to, it's not the one that you hate. You're not going to have the biggest contribution in an arena that you don't actually, on some level, really enjoy. Like, for example, if you hate math, like, it might be selfless of you to make contributions in the math world, and you know, the world needs advancements and different proofs that need solved or whatever, but that's not where you will make the area of greatest contribution. Like, in the area that you hate the most is not going to be the area of your greatest contribution. You will go further, faster when you enjoy the thing and you have a natural motivation to do this thing. That is where you will go furthest and fastest. And throughout the process, there will be things about it that you don't like, and that's where you can tie yourself to a greater mission, and you can think, okay, I'm gonna keep going for these people. But if you don't like math, there's no need to martyr yourself and just say, oh, I gotta do this because of, you know, the meaning and selflessness and tying to this cause. Find the cause that you actually enjoy and are passionate about. I think this is probably just common sense, but within the realm that you enjoy the most, the selflessness will be in the parts of that you don't like, but try to find one that you just generally enjoy the most. So I will have the rest of the September Shift Challenge linked in this video. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.